For many years, Indycar visited Kentucky Speedway and in the early heydays of the speedway. For many years, drivers had to deal with the bumps, the different terrain, and the trickiness that comes at this unique facility at its heyday in Sparta, Kentucky. But today, the top drivers in the Classic IndyCar Series boosted by Virtual Race Car Engineer are all set to go for their challenges today on the sim. It's the Nucentric Solutions Indy 300 at Kentucky. Good afternoon, I'm Justin Prince. Alongside the booth today is Jim Hodgson, along with Paul Smith in the director's seat for today's action. Jim, first things first, a tricky track set for the schedule after a long summer break of more than a month.
You're absolutely right. We are going to see some thrilling racing today, no question about it. Teams Vortex, Sim Racing, and Chimera once again going head-to-head. I was pleased to see the previous race. Cannot wait for this one.
This is a race that will mimic the 2007 Meyer Indy 300 back in August of 2007, won by Tony Kanaan. Lucas LaVille will try and build on his points lead, though, after the summer break. Joshua Chin is in second for Team Chimera. 12 points is the difference. Robert Groscher is in P number 3 with Jamie Wilson, one of the top IndyCar drivers on the surface as well, in P4. John Garrett moved up 2 spots after an exciting race at New Hampshire in June to P5, with Wood, Shoemake, Baird, Rudowney, along with McBride rounding out the top 10 in the point standings entering today's round. It's the home stretch of the season, though, Jim. Not many races left to try and build up points, and it could be a tough one. The track is fairly cool, but as mentioned, the track is very bumpy for these Indy cars.
Absolutely. It's going to be a maximum test of focus out there, but I think for you and me, that's really good news because we get to see a beautiful, brilliant race at an iconic track.
Drivers currently in the midst of 2 laps solo qualifying today. As you can see with the weather conditions mostly cloudy, it is also later on in the day there's a chance the lights may turn on depending on how the length of the race goes. In sim time is just past 6 p.m. at the moment for tonight's action at this 1.4 plus mile facility. This is a unique kind of track, though. It's not your cookie cutter mile and a half because it was talked about many times in this track's history, Jim, that this is the most challenging turn 3 in all of stock car racing. That can be said as well for the Indy cars today, where it's not just as simple as you take it the same as turn 1 and 2 because it's more flatter.
Yeah, you're right. We did see some of that. We saw some people get bit by that kind of thing last week. Hopefully we'll see a lot of clean racing this week, but it's certainly a challenging track. And again, I can't wait to get started myself.
Today's best practice. Yes, indeed. Today's best practice times. Randy Shoemake with the 25-1 in practice. Baird, Groscher, Shipstone, and Martin June ran out of the top 5, separated by a couple tenths. Drivers currently putting in some very hot laps in that same buffer, with the majority of those same drivers we just mentioned inside the top 5. But what's the best way around this racetrack? Let's take a look at your hot lap for today's action.
Welcome to Legacy, Kentucky for the Nucentric Solutions 300 of the 2020 Virtual Race Car Engineer Classic IndyCar Series. I am Josh Baird, and I will be giving you a tour around the quick 1.5 mile track. Entering the 14-degree bank turns of 1 and 2, we will slide up to the wall to maximize our apex through the corner. As the temperatures continue to drop, the cars will be more maneuverable throughout the race. We will have to watch the apron here, as it will be quick to spin the car. Going through turns 3 and 4 are a little tighter because of the entry. Pinpointing the apex is key, or the car will be tight on exit. The successful setup will be made through these turns. This has been a Nucentric Solutions track tour, brought to you by Josh Baird. I hope you enjoy the race.
Just a few moments away before the start of today's action, Jim. It should be worth noting that the driver you've seen there in Joshua Baird, one of the quickest drivers in this racetrack, one of the favorites for today. There's also a couple noteworthy talking points to should note today because we talked about Martin June from NAB Racing. He's making one of his debuts this season, but Adam Shipstone, his first comeback after 4 races in 2018 where he won at Belle Isle, Jim.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a strong history. I think it's really all to play for. As you say, we are getting toward the latter end of the season, so I think tempers will be running hot, and certainly everybody will be excited to get out there and battle it out.
Drivers will now make their way towards the starting grid in just a moment or so. 19 competitors have made their way to the track for this year's edition of the Nucentric Solutions Indy 300. Let's take a look at how they will start today. On the front row, it's Andrew Aitken with a 25.111 over Josh Baird. He'll start on the outside front row in front of Caleb Weekly. In fourth spot, Andrew Ednar Saunders with Martin June in P number 5. Johnny Garrett starts in P6 today with a points leader. Lucas Leville will start alongside in 7 to his championship competitor, Robert Grocher. Rounding out the top 10 in his third start of the season, Mesa Joya Olira along with Adam Shipstone in his comeback. Jonathan Diggs starts in 11 today with Art McEwen deep in the field in P12 with Ethan Agan. Ends up finishing what was a strong top 5 streak for starting positions back in 13th today. Jamie Wilson starts in 14th, while rounding out the 15 drivers to take times today in the number 35 machine, it is Kershen Brodnay. Rounding out the drivers who did not put in qualifying times, the fastest in practice, Randy Shoemake, Tristan Hauser, Neil McBride, and Sam Winton are your 19 competitors in the field today. Once again, to touch upon how today's race expected to go 200 laps or 120 minutes, whatever comes first today, mimicking the 2007 edition of the Meyer Indy 300. It's expected to be a race type of endurance, especially depending on the amount of caution flags factored in for how today this race could go. This series raced this track in 2017, where Miguel Constantini came home with the victory. Overall today, Jim, what are your keys to victory if you want to add your name to that list?
Well, I think number one, and we saw it in the previous race, your key is going to be racing clean, just keeping your nose clean. You just mentioned Egan had some trouble in the previous race, and honestly, Justin, I'm surprised to see him this far back in the field today.
Yeah, all the way back in 13th, as we talked about, has started top 5 many of the races this season. But many of the top teams are up towards the front that we've talked about all season long who have been competitive here at these racetracks. Should note back in 2017 for this event, Grocher was one of the contenders with his teammate Constantini at the time for finishing 1-2, with P3 at the time being 2 laps down. How will this year's race fare is going to be the big question mark for these competitors. They also raced during the preseason back in 2019. What are the final thoughts we should bring up for today's race, Jim, in your opinion?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I'm to be honest with you, Justin, I'm rocked by the I'm a little bit shocked by the way that the field has gridded up today. It's not at all what I expected. As I said, surprising to see some of these very fast drivers a little bit farther back in the field, but definitely some very fast guys with Aitken and Baird up at the sharp parts. So, oh boy, I don't know. I can't wait.
Of note, 2 drivers did miss the start. Shoemake, Hauser will both start from the pit lane for today's action. Well, Andrew Aitken in control of the field today. Josh Baird starts on the outside front row. The pace car makes its way through turn 4. Are you all set to go? We hope you are. Buckle up, folks. It's time for the Nucentric Solutions Indy 300. We're underway from Kentucky.
Justin, that looked like a great start to me for Aitken and Baird there, just pulling away from the field a little bit with Weekly, I'm sure, looking to make up that gap.
Yeah, the top 2 immediately running off and away to the races with the good jump. Several drivers trying the top line. The drivers who missed the start have already made their way to the access road down on the apron. First lap led by Aitken in the 29.7s to begin. The heart of the pack, though, fairly contested, while the leaders very calm. The top 2 have broken away so far.
We got a pretty tight pack back in the field, as you mentioned, led by last week's winner, Lucas Laville, but he's got the wolf pack over his shoulder.
Now you can see just in the back distance, already that's a gap of nearly 2-3 seconds for the race leaders on that massive pack. And for those who don't know, this is with the older Indycar chassis, circa 2011 with the Dallara. This is a car which absolutely puts on a lot of good racing, but also requires a lot of slipstream and a lot of patience to drive with. Also, if you fight too much, it can lose you a lot of time, Jim.
Absolutely. Unbelievable to see our leaders already making contact with the rear of the field Aiken and Baird, I mean, it's like they're twins out there. They are just millimeters from one another.
Absolutely, that third grouping, by the way, you see that's the 29. LaVille already breaking away from the third pack, trying to close into the two-car grouping of Weekly and Saunders. Right behind them, though, June currently holding on to 6. Johnny Garrett, though, lost a couple of positions off the jump. Here he goes, the independent to the outside.
I think he was just the unfortunate recipient of a lesson in geometry during that turn, was not able to go around the outside, Justin.
Yeah, this is usually a bottom preferred racetrack in 1 and 2 especially. The difference, though, is how you drive in 3 and 4 based on experience, Jim. How, as a driver, do you plan to adapt to something like that to make sure that you don't cook your tires trying the different lines, but at the same time get set preferred line and battle with the aerodynamics in front of you?
Well, I wish I could tell you how to do that. I never managed to do it very well myself. I usually end up, overdriving the car, tearing up my tires. But, that's why I'm not in this race at the front of the field today.
Indeed, here, by the way, 2 drivers did not even make it out of the pit lane, should note. Rodney officially not able to make the start or get to the green flag. Sam Winton also did not make it to the racetrack. They're currently 10 laps down. At the back of the field, though, number 20 of Aiken still struggling a little bit. He's already lost 1 spot from the drop of the green flag. He is top 12 in the point standings entering today.
A little bit tricky out there as we watch Aiken and Baird starting to really get a good gap on Caleb Weekly in P3, but there is a back marker between those 2 groups, so it might look like the field is closed up, but that is not the case.
Yeah, though, the driver behind you seen was Hauser. This is the grouping for 6 once again now on screen. And June, one of those drivers who is a familiar name for the iRacing Esports Network, Jim. Races a lot of road course racing for NAB Racing, usually is one of its top drivers, and looking very sporty so far in the Indycar today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we're looking at a masterclass being put on here today. Honestly, Justin, this is going to be a whole lot of laps of very, very focused drivers, just like machines out there behind the wheel.
See the gap between the top 16 right now, already about 24 seconds. The reason you've seen the flicker with Shoemake is currently on the edge of going a lap down. 15 competitors are on the lead lap in the main pack, separated by 8 seconds on the racetrack. So off to a good start, to say the very least, for Aiken and Baird. This is the racetrack which holds the record for the quickest race in series history, where this series went 196 laps green in that race in 2017 after an early race caution. That's where, in turn, the top 2 ended up lapping the field twice. The pace right now of these top 2 is currently 3/10 quicker, Jim, than anybody else.
Absolutely. And the interesting thing to me is these guys are just nose to tail, but they are also taking very different lines around the track, as you can see them as they go. Perhaps there's a little bit of biding his time on Baird's part there, same as with Andrew Adair Saunders, just kind of hanging out, letting the race come to them, Justin.
Now, one thing to keep in mind is some of the strategies so far. Already 12 laps in, but drivers have talked about how about 57 laps in clean air is the fuel number for today, but can differ based on how the downforce is set up for these cars, depending on how you adjust the wings, how you adjust the front wing, especially in the back, etc., etc. There could be the chance here some of these cars may feel safe here in these packs like this if they stay single file for a few laps.
Absolutely. And it's exactly as you say. And then that all becomes a conversation about tires as well, because if you're using more downforce or less downforce, you're sliding more or less. So, it's a lot of factors out there.
Now, to simplify that for those watching along, the downforce essentially is how much speed you can carry in the corners. Less downforce means you have to be off the throttle more. More downforce means you're faster in the corners. But the downside is you're not as quick down the straightaways. That time we've seen the 68 of Garrett nearly smack the car into the wall. He carried so much speed off the corner. This has now made things interesting, though, as the battle is on right in front of them for P4. LaVille is trying to gain some spots.
And it looks like indeed he does, at least according to the timing. It looks LaVille has pulled out in front of that pack, but they are not going to let him have it for nothing.
Yeah, in fact, you've seen Saunders has actually lost touch to Weekly. He's now up for grabs for June and going right backwards. And it's pretty clear so far, despite the bumps that are on the bottom side, with the momentum you can carry, especially 1 and 2, if you're not on the bottom against that yellow line, you're a sitting duck, it seems, Jim.
Absolutely right. You know, it's just as you were saying a moment ago, you just got to get off of the throttle if you get into trouble in the turns, and the downforce and everything plays into that. But it looks to me like Lavelle is able to, it looks like he's making a little bit of a gap for himself.
The leaders, though, are starting to fight a little bit. Josh Baird peeked to the inside of Aiken. This time, though, the 27 able to floor it back single file once again in the grouping for now. They did lose a touch bit of time, not too much, though, as they're starting to equalize out to many of the cars in the midst of the pack. Only one lap car ahead in Randy Shoemake. Everyone else has clean space at the time for now.
You know, interesting to me the way that we see Baird going lower in some spots than Aiken, a little bit higher in other. To me, it's almost as if Baird is just trying to fill up Aiken's mirrors and let him know, hey, I'm back here. If you make a mistake, I am going to jump all over you.
Absolutely. Just applying the pressure. Iconic Motorsports, one of the favorite teams throughout this season, against Aero X, who we mentioned has great speed with Shoemake, the driver who started from the pit lane in front of these cars. The fastest inset practice session after he didn't set a qualifying time for today. Currently 16 drivers are on the lead lap at the moment. Should note that battle for P3 is now side by side. Weekly currently trying to defend LaVille at the other end of the speedway, currently in 3 and 4. Here's a look at that as the caution flag is out down the back straightaway. Jonathan Diggs brings out the first yellow of the race after contact with the inside wall. Let's take a look at the replay here, Jim, and keep an eye on the exit of turn 2. Sometimes you can tell where you're getting loose. It looked like that time he didn't lift when the car started to hook.
Yeah, that came at an unfortunate... Oh no.
I just started loading up, it seems, the left side tires, Jim, and just hooked right in.
Yeah, you know, they say both feet in prevent a spin, but that's, in my experience, not always enough.
Most drivers electing to stay on the racetrack. Now, an interesting note as well, though, was some drivers were instructed for green flag racing to take the access road. Majority of the drivers who pit did not take said access road. We'll see if that's discussed or not via race control. 2 drivers at the back did. Shoemake in turn stays on the lead lap, while 6 drivers stay out on the racetrack. Elect to keep the track position. This would allow them about a 20-lap difference on the fuel number here, and this changes up the strategy just a little bit here, Jim.
Absolutely. I get, you know, Caleb Weekly right now has got to be jumping up and down in his car to get that gap closed up. He was just able to, you know, starting to make moves on June and Grosser in the lot there. So to be able to close up to the leaders here is just a real gift for him, I think.
Indeed. This series title sponsor is Virtual Race Engineer. Virtual Race Engineer is a software package that includes the Setup Developer Tool and Virtual Race Car Engineer, which assists real and virtual race cars. The Setup Developer Tool walks through a user through step-by-step processes of creating and customizing their very own personalized baseline race setup. It does so by asking simple questions about, say, the car type, the track type, the behavior of the car on said track. Virtual Race Car Engineer further also fine-tunes the baseline setup to then get the most out of the car, offering whole, lap, and corner-specific advice. VRCE will get the very best out of your setup. Both the Setup Developer Tool and the Virtual Race Car Engineer can be found in the link below here on the iRacing Esports Network for the YouTube version of this broadcast. And I have to say, based on experience, and remember using that specific tool when trying to learn about setups back in the day, Jim, it's a very helpful tool to try and learn what you need to adjust for certain situations.
Yeah, invaluable, really. I mean, there's so many variables, as we were talking about earlier. It's just, it's impossible for me to keep it in my mind. And when I spend a few minutes in it, I just start thinking to myself, you know, I got in this because I like to drive, not because I want to set up cars. So to have a tool like that is indispensable.
Absolutely here. But 3 drivers elected not to take the pit stop under green flag conditions, Aiken, Baird, and Grosser all elected to stay out on the racetrack. Keep in mind, we talked about the fuel number. These drivers still would have to pit about the same times, but it looks like they want to just stay up at the front, keep the track position, and/or try and bank on, say, something happening later on in this race.
I gotta say, I think probably going to be more or less a certainty that we'll probably see another yellow flag before the race is over. So they might have made the right choice there, but you never know.
How difficult will it be, though, to stay up in front on older tires, though?
Yeah, certainly a problem. They start going off, and a move that worked even, just a lap ago starts to slide you around, and next thing you know, the yellow flag is out because you've gotten into the wall.
Lights are still on top of the safety car at the moment. By the way, check comparison. When fighting, the drivers who were still running at the time of green flag conditions lost about a couple tenths, but they were only 2 tenths off what their fastest lap times are on the racetrack. Remember, the fastest lap times for the top 3 have been quicker, if not dead even, with the majority of the pack here. The biggest driver who gets an opportunity here based on the pit stops, though, you see Laville, +3. He's the first driver who pit. +10 for McBride pitting. Also, the drivers you see down deep in the pylon, 13 through 15, we're just talking about weekly, June, Shipstone, they came down the next time by to get extra service, so now they're deep in the field and lost all the track position. While Shoemake, that caution just saved him, Jim, because he was running away from the leaders, yes, but now he's with said leaders with one of the fastest cars on the track.
Yeah, interesting. And I think Grosser's kind of made out well, too. He's in P3 now, just behind Baird and Aiken. Be interesting to see what he's able to make of it.
Everyone's single file waiting for the safety car to turn its lights out. 177 laps to go. Nucentric Solutions Indy 300. Here on iRacing Esports Network and RaceBot TV. Lights are now out. Their top 10 again: Aiken, Baird, Grosser, who stayed out on the racetrack, Laville, Garrett, Saunders, Herba, Oliva, along with McBride, Wilson, again, currently your top 10 at the moment. Once again, Nucentric Solutions is proud to sponsor the 2020 VRCE Classic IndyCar Series for round number 8. They offer managed IT services to small and medium-sized businesses in the Southeast United States. For more information to see if Nucentric can provide your company IT solutions, visit them at nucentric.com. About to get back underway here. What are some of the things to keep in mind for some of our viewers here for the next 177 laps, especially for the first single-file restart of the night?
Well, you touched on it, but I think we're going to look and see if we get a big jump here. I would expect to, Aiken and Baird are going to try to pull away again. Certainly, Grosser or Laville are going to want to try to hang on and see if they can make something out of their gift of having the field close up here. Just seems like they're crawling along there, but here we go. Let's see what kind of start we get.
Off and away goes Aiken. Early jump with the safety car off and away. Top 2 run off and away. All running more than a second just about. Gained on P3. Robert Grosser was caught sleeping. No one's able to make a move quite yet as everyone separates out.
That's surprising to me. Very surprising. Grosser, he knows a lot about this course. He knows a lot about this series. Surprising to me to see him get caught napping there, as you said.
First battle's deep in the pack. You also see a bit of side-by-side starting to form up. That's about 7th on back or so. The 96 able to get back single file. You see in line, though, that's McBride trying to make some moves. We talked about him +10. Trying to make it +11 for Team Chimera, though. Pushes up the racetrack to the second line.
Justin, it seems to me that the leaders aren't having quite as easy a time getting away this time as they did before. Do you think they're playing it a little bit more cautiously, or could it just be that Grosser and Laville are gaining confidence here back in P3 and 4?
Honestly, based on what we've seen so far and based on experiences, it might be a mix of both. And keep in mind, the best laps of the race have just been set by some of the drivers up in front. Josh Baird with a purple lap time of a 25.436. That is on, remember, 20-plus old tires. Now it's becoming very clear that the tire wear is not as high as some people may have expected for today, especially with the speeds these top two are carrying. Everyone behind them on fresher tires can't even match them.
Yeah, unbelievable. I mean, you would expect, well, you touched on it, you said it yourself, but these guys just almost in a class by themselves, putting on a show for the rest of the field. And we got a 1-2 here that's really looking to get up the road.
For Josh, as we talked about a bit, top 8 in the point standings, his best finish this season, a P6, back in an exhibition race at the Nürburgring. His best official race was at Zolder in P7. He's right now looking very sporty today compared to what we've seen from Aitken so far. Already the gap, almost a full second and a half between second and third. That third car grouping, by the way, has 3 drivers fighting for position. LaVille is in 4th, right behind Groscher. Garrett is also hooked on to this slipstream train.
You know, if I'm Aitken or Baird, I'm saying to myself, why would I bother to come in if I'm getting away from the field? You know, I mean, obviously their tires are working pretty well.
Absolutely, and that can also be telling of just some of the experience setup-wise, Jim, on the service those drivers have, because the IndyCar community is a strong one, with a lot of talented setup builders who, in some cases, assisted with drivers during some of the Pro Invitational Series events and compete in various different races. There's a lot of talented drivers who can build setups across iRacing, let's put it that way.
Absolutely, and I think the group that run in this particular series are all really helpful and friendly to one another. So they, you know, I think they're sharing setups out there. Maybe not every detail of the setup, but you know, they want people to be competitive and have a great race
and have fun too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Looking like some fun. Meanwhile, for some of these fights you see, it's now turned to a 2-car grouping for the battle for third. Phil has been able to break off and away from Garrett after he got tight, as you've seen on screen a couple laps ago. These drivers still about a 10th or so a lap off the pace to the race leader. LaVille, though, is the quicker car. Does have the ability, though, to slipstream behind and save a bit as he lifts off the gas going into turn 1 again.
Yeah, LaVille, I think, in a pretty good position here, especially since everybody else on the track at the moment still needs to stop. He's had 1 stop, has LaVille, I believe.
Yes, indeed. It's a 20-lap difference on the stint.
So he must be thinking to himself, okay, I'm in P4, but these guys have all got to come in before I do, so anything can happen.
Change for the race lead up at the front. Josh Baird just ducked underneath of Aitken. He peaked underneath before once more, but Aitken again using the momentum on the high side. Baird, though, uses the preferred bottom line against the bumps. Can he get it done without any slipstream help? No. Still, Aitken holds on to the race lead. He has led just about every single lap so far today.
Yeah, that was surprising to me. I wonder if Baird is just getting a little bit antsy out there. I mean, there is still, Justin, plenty of racing to go. We're not even a quarter of the way through with this thing, so I would think Baird would want to go on and bide his time a little bit more, but who knows? Hard to tell a racing driver to bide his time. They're going to want to get out there and get something done.
I mean, at this point, Aitken's led just about every single lap, right? While Baird's been able to try and save fuel. Maybe he feels he's in the number. We'll have to see. By the way, P9, Shoemake and Wilson scrapping a bit. We talked about Shoemake missing the start of this race. Team the Chimera's Wilson dives to the bottom side, trying to take the spot back alongside the bumps. Nearly got loose, though. There's the momentum back down the front stretch. And now there's some drafting help behind. That's Martin June trying to take advantage. Making it look easy. Martin June makes the pass easily on the high side. He's now into the top 10 once again, Jim.
Yeah, some great racing out there. That was exciting. While you were watching that, I was just watching our leaders again, and Baird still kind of playing with Aitken, having a little look for about a half a lap. I wonder if Aitken's tires are starting to go off, and he's just slow at some sections, and that's when Baird has his little look. I think we're going to see them go too wide again here in a second, perhaps.
Yeah, I think so too at this point. Keep in mind they are shifting. You see a little bit on the steering column. Drivers have been shifting on corner exit and some down the straightaways. See it right at the top. 5th gear, right in the draft, right up to the rev limiter. Some drivers have been going up to 6th. Some have been staying in 5th. This time, Baird stays in 5th as Aiken again tight for a 2nd lap in a row off turn 4.
Yeah, still very different lines between these two leaders, but turning very similar laps.
Yep, Aiken with the cleaner air has been utilizing the shifting to 6th gear, while Baird has been staying in 5th gear and saving throughout this entire run so far. These drivers will have to pit in about 16 laps estimated, give or take. That's without fuel saving. Aiken's been in clean air this entire race so far from the drop of the green flag. Last time by, their lap time still a 1/10 of a second quicker than 2nd. Check that 3rd on back as once again Baird peaks.
Yeah, unbelievable to see these guys lapping as fast as they are. Under 26 seconds. It's just, again, putting on a masterclass, whereas P3 getting up in the 25.7s, 25.78, 25.7, you know, so forth like that.
Absolutely. See the differences a little bit of how confident they are to get close to that backstretch wall as well. They're trying to build up momentum once again to the bottom side again. Just not enough to try and build it up. Still electing to save the fuel and stay in 5th gear down the straightaways. Aiken still has to shift up to 6th gear at the end of the straightaways back to 5th gear by corner entry. It's not the only group, as we talked about, that's working together. We mentioned the different strategies so far being taken advantage of. They're going to try and gain time because of this. Baird tries to make the move again. Nearly hits Aiken, has to lift hard.
As much as that was a scary moment right there, I think we're seeing some pretty courteous driving between these two guys. They both want to have a good race. They want to race close, but they also want to make sure that they win based on driving and not some unfortunate incident.
Yeah, lots of respect being given by these drivers, but you see the differences as well. Baird quicker in 3 and 4, Aiken quicker in 1 and 2 at the moment. Despite that close call, the drivers once again gain time once again on the drivers behind, and Rocher and LaVille, who are working together in the 2nd group. Garrett's on his own in P5, while 6th on back is currently in a cluster all the way to 12th, covered by about 2 seconds. Here's that look on the left side of your screen now on the timing pylon with just one driver 1 lap down, and the 2 drivers at the bottom of the pylon missing laps today, including Jonathan Diggs with the DNF Winton, who did not make it to the racetrack, as well as 35 of Brodney, who did not make the start as well today for this race as we approach the 1/4 in mark.
You know, Justin, I'd like to bring your attention, if I may, to the current battle for P6. That's your 6th and 7th car. In 6, we have Andrew Adair Saunders, who is just now being closed up on by Visa Ilha Olila. You'll pardon me, I am not a great speaker of Finnish. I hope that is somewhere in the same arrondissement as the actual pronunciation. But some interesting driving here from the Finn, able to close that gap up to Saunders.
One of the drivers for Iconic Motorsports, mind you, trying to fight with his teammate. These two machines are. For the Chaser right now in the 96 machine, it's his 3rd start of the season, just 7 total incident points in those said races. Also took part in that exhibition race we mentioned in July at the Nürburgring. The drivers looking to have fun at the Nordschleife with these machines. Up at the front, though, Baird again trying to take a peek and just took the race lead because Aiken has elected to come down and pit at lap 50 on the dot.
Well, it was inevitable. We knew it had to happen. I think the interesting thing to note here will be how Baird handles it. Does he pit on the next lap, Justin?
Yeah, this is going to get interesting, and this is actually a kind of makes sense strategy call here, Jim. You can essentially split the race up at 50, 50, 50, and then have a bit less fuel in the tank for the checker flag since it's about 57 on a full tank.
Yeah, it's, you know, as we were talking about with setups earlier, it very quickly becomes something that's outside my abilities as a mathematician. But, you know, these drivers are doing that math in their head even as they're putting on a show for us.
And just how long is that difference in 20 laps of fuel compared to about 50? You see it right there, 11 seconds, the pit stop time. The drivers who came down under the caution flag, only 8.5 seconds. Time it took to fill it up. Baird is still in the lead, but this grouping is still working together. These are drivers on different strategies. Grosser trying to help his fellow teammate behind it appears at the moment save fuel in the backdrop for Vortex Sim Racing. This is going to help LaVille get to his fuel number here, Jim. As remember, Robert has to come down eventually in the next 5-10 laps.
Yeah, certainly. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens here to Baird's lap times. And I think we just saw LaVille and Grosser swap places.
Yep, there's the clean air right there once now to the 29 machine. This might be the signal that Grosser may be thinking of pitting in the next couple laps and doesn't want to hold up his teammate. Backs off a lot, in fact, to get away from him. .147 to go that time by at the stripe. Still want to keep bringing attention to that grouping. Fourth on back at the moment on the racetrack. Talked about it a little bit. Look how crazy it's getting. Garrett's trying to run away. Saunders is able to get a bit of a cushion, but the 96 is feeling pressure from Shoemake, June. McBride is also within range, and Shipstone has also fallen back from this grouping. Several drivers looking to fight in this train while also thinking about the fuel.
Yeah, look at that train as they come through. This is some really exciting racing back there, starting with, as you said, Garrett is at the lead of that pack, and it's going to be, there's a lot of exciting racing going on back there.
At this point, as a driver, how patient do you try and be, knowing it's the early part of the race and knowing that, oh, hey, someone like June might be a bit more quicker, may as well give him the space? What are some of the things going in your mind if you're in that cockpit as a driver?
You know, for me, it's always about trying to stay consistent, trying to keep from getting, you know, what we refer to as brain fade. You don't, it's tough. You can almost get hypnotized out there if you don't keep it fresh. And I think it'll be interesting to see what happens to Baird now that he's running all by himself without Aitken to play with, as we see Andrew Adair Saunders closing the gap to Garrett and attempting a pass.
That's to the inside, taking it right away from Garrett. Garrett was slipping back, remember, had about a 2-second cushion on this group at one point. That's some of the importance of the slipstream here at this racetrack as they now try and dive underneath. Shoemake trying to make a move at the back of that train. Single file for the rest of it. Back single file once again, though. But that move and a couple others, though, just allowed McBride back into the train. That's, again, how much time you can lose if you're side by side, 2 to 3 tenths a lap.
Great move by Saunders there. I think some great clean racing. Just made it happen.
Now June's trying to make things happen too. He's pushing a lot this run, it seems. He's not trying to save as hard as some of these errors and has the confidence to make it stick. He's making it stick out of 3 and 4 on the bottom better than anybody else in this group.
It is really tough down there offline, as you've been mentioning. As we see, I think Saunders getting a little bit of a gap over Garrett, maybe going to be able to catch up to Grosser and LaVille if possible. But as you were saying, it is tough down there. I mean, it is the shortest way around the track to be down on the yellow stripe, but not always the best place to grip.
Especially when there's a car outside with the ability to try and pinch, which can be dangerous, Jim, in an Indy car.
Yes, absolutely, in any car.
Car nearly up in the wall. That's a lap machine. That's Egan, who's been off the pace throughout the race today. That bunches things up, and June now back to the bottom side. Garrett trying to defend once again up top. Gives a little bit of space as June able to make it stick this time. Shoemake thinks about going 3 wide. No, keeps it 2 wide up in front as June completes the pass.
I think that was a smart move on Shoemake's part. Just have a little bit of patience.
There's the leader right there. That's Josh Baird coming down the pit lane for his service. So the most he can make, 61 laps, including the caution flag with several pace laps. Keep in mind, the lap time's exactly the same as Aitken when he came out of the pit lane on fresher tires, Jim.
Yeah, absolutely. As we see Grosser head into the pits. So your leader, LaVille, is now going to be running all by himself.
Remember, he can still go for another 20-plus laps based on the numbers we've already seen. As mentioned, Buescher at the other end of the pit lane coming down for his scheduled service. And as seen before, 11.9 seconds, a little bit longer, in fact, than Aiken on the pit stop. Aiken still about a couple seconds behind at the moment. This is going to be tight once again for the race lead. There's the 27 coming through 1 and 2 now. Baird still on the apron and move Aiken back into the race lead. He's able to jump them by a few car lengths.
Wow, that's some great racing out there.
So that moves the focus right now in the current race lead groups. Saunders is currently in net P2, but remember, has to come down as talked about in about 17 laps. June is fighting for that current second place position on the racetrack. Saunders reeled right back on and in after losing a 10th last time by. His average pace has been about half a tenth slower the past 10 laps compared to the 21.
June and Shoemaker really making their way through the field here, Justin. That's they're getting some good work done out there.
Yeah, Shoemaker's been nice and clean. You can see 44 laps now on the stint. Want to take a listen in for this lap. Just hear some of the preciseness with the throttle points. And as you can see, he's one of the drivers using 6th gear as well. 210 miles an hour inside the draft of the cars in front. Still, though, Jim just can't build up the run to make the pass.
Yeah, that's a pretty thrilling shot there, looking at the view from Shoemaker's cockpit as we're looking at Saunders and June there just ahead. It looks like June is going high here. I'm not sure he's going to be able to make anything out of that, but he is charging along, Justin.
Makes it work. So Saunders gives him the space, gives him the spot, move June up to second for the time being. Again, LaVille's in the lead for now by 6 seconds. Shoemaker trying to follow suit up on the top line, and does. So it looks like Saunders now is starting to fall off in his car.
I think McBride is probably going to be able to make something happen on Saunders here. That's surprising to me. Saunders was running so quickly, but maybe he burned up his tires getting around the track a little bit faster. He's falling like a rock out there.
Yeah, we haven't really seen too many times drivers make passes work on the top line today. McBride now able to make it stick as well. And now Saunders dropping like a lead balloon for the final couple laps of the stint. He is now falling about 4/10 a lap off the pace the past 2 laps after losing that top line throughout the backstretch and the front straightaway to try and exit on.
So everybody's come in once now, except for Egan, who's been in twice. So you would expect to see, well, maybe it's just a waiting game out there.
Yeah, remember these drivers have the different cycle and strategy. Where based on the numbers would have to pit about 80 and then around 140-ish. One driver did hit the wall. You see a little bit of a drop behind. That's Garrett. Hit the wall bit on the exit of turn 2. He's now dropping like a lead balloon as well to P8. Yeah, this will be the next time by. He is inside the dirty air of the cars in front, but it can be tricky with the corner exit. Watch the right side tires when he gets to the air end of the speedway, Jim. Apologies here as this is live action. As Garrett. Now he's still getting tight, able to recover decently from that scrub against the wall with the tires, something you don't obviously want to do, Jim.
No, that's certainly something that you want to avoid for a number of reasons. Of course, suspension damage, puncture, any number of things, not to mention just ricocheting yourself out into the line of fire, as it were.
Absolutely. That traffic moves off and away. Currently, your net overall leaders from the pit stop cycle, Aiken and Baird, who already have come down for their service, are still the fastest cars on the racetrack. 1-2, Aiken and Baird. Baird able to draft back up to him within 4/10. They are still a lap down, though, so if anything was to happen in that main pack, this could change up the complexion of this entire race.
Yeah, that would be devastating. I'm watching the interval between LaVille and June right now. It's climbing up to about 7 seconds. So it looks to me like, even though he's running all by himself out there, it looks to me like LaVille is gaining time.
That's actually a great point to bring up with that driver you see on the upper ticker as your race leader. He's been gaining more and more time, a 10th or so a lap on drivers such as this with Martin June. The interval already about 6.7 seconds. You see already 3/10 lost in 2 laps alone, Jim.
Yeah, you got to be thinking, if he's probably thinking to himself, if I can get this gap up to, maybe 20 seconds, I can go into the pit and come right back out in the lead.
See if this ends up working out for him. But here's the thing again, Aiken and Baird, when they aren't reaching traffic, have still been recording times quicker than anybody else still on the racetrack. 123 laps to go, as here comes McBride now to try and fight with Shoemake No. Pushes up against the racetrack. An interesting call here for McBride, able to stay in 6th gear that time. As Baird, can he finally complete the pass? He was trying so many laps. Yes, he does. Aiken, though, with the switchback, again for the net race lead. Back on the bottom side, Aiken trying to make it stick. For the first time, he tries to make the pass on the lead. No, Baird, Lee is now up in front for the net race lead after finally clearing by the 27 after 50-plus laps of work. And a solid move there from Baird there, Jim, on that pass.
He must have watched the hot lap that we showed at the beginning of the broadcast and seen himself give a class on how to drive this course.
Absolutely. Now becomes the question, can Baird run off and away? Pit stops are underway, though, for the drivers who came down the first caution. McBride and Saunders, the first to blink this time for their scheduled service at lap 81 with 120 to go on the dot. Now, just trying to add up the numbers at the top of my head at this point here, Jim. At this point for the numbers, drivers been trying to go 60 laps apiece. There's a chance if this goes
there.
Yes, indeed. LaVille coming down once again, pardon me there, but was just trying to note there, Jim, they might be able to try and cut out an extra pit stop here, possibly.
Yeah, always tempting. I was just watching Baird driving through the field, and he's got a lot of pace. I mean, the rest of the field, I don't think have too much to match Baird out there.
For those doing the math in their head, if they fuel save throughout the run to get to 60 laps apiece, the estimate is 80, 140, 200 to get to the end. Remember, for many of the air drivers, they can go, if they try and stretch it like Josh Baird, for example, 60, 120, but then would have to come in another time to make it to the end, would be 20 laps short. So this is the gamble they took here, Jim, by staying out on that caution flag.
Well, Justin, you called it.
However, if there's anything to happen, it completely shakes the entire running order and flips that strategy upside down and changes the complexion of this race. By the way, Baird and Aiken now 1 and 2. LaVille able to hold on to 3rd after his pit stop. Rusher, though, trying to keep that position on the racetrack. It's 1 second between 1st and 2nd now, as everything's now cycled for the time being.
I think LaVille is in a pretty good spot here, Justin. He's, again, has one more stop than has Baird and Aiken, running in P3. Not in too bad of a position.
Yeah, LaVille has been running comparable times about a half a tenth to a tenth or so off when the leaders have been in traffic. Question's going to be, can he somehow close an 8-second gap? That's the tricky part. He's right now in third position on the first car on the two-stop strategy to make it to the end. Still one scheduled pit stop. Every car in front of him would have to make an extra couple, as well as Groscher, who still has to also follow that same strategy. June's up in P5, 15 seconds back. While drivers like Saunders, who were among the first drivers to pit, they were losing time in bunches, we noted. Him and McBride are now at least about a couple seconds back from some of the drivers that they were fighting with before they ducked down and pit.
I'm just watching the gap between Baird and Aiken, and it looks to me like Baird is getting away from Aiken a little bit. The gap now getting up toward 2 seconds. It looks like, at least for the last lap or two, that Baird is getting around a little bit faster.
Yeah, that was the thought I was having there, Jim. Was he being held up there at this point, especially with how many times he was trying to make the pass on the bottom side but couldn't make it stick, and elected instead, feeling like should just feel safe. So now in turn, that gap is now 2 seconds plus, with them running 0.2 a lap quicker in some portions at the moment. The fight you see on your screen still with P8. Seeing Saunders tried that bottom line, a couple up to the top line. Garrett having McBride follow his draft. Number 4 says thank you very much. He's now back up into P number 8 once again.
Just watching Saunders, it looks like he's, again, just falling back a little bit as he gets past. That is McBride making that pass happen on the downside of the track there.
Yep, able to get the switch back once again to take the spot back once again with the slipstream. Now Saunders trying to cut right back and forth. This is what you'd see, say, if you try and run these cars on a super speedway, not usually on a mile and a half. It also isn't time efficient, let's put it that way. These drivers in this fight ran 26 flats last time by. The drivers in front of them in the next grouping 5 seconds up the road are in the 25 sixes in 7 still. That's how much you can get held up if you fight too much. And now, McBride and Saunders able to just start to pull away now once again from Garrett, as well as the 96 now that they've single filed out.
Yeah, I was surprised after McBride just got by Saunders there that Saunders didn't immediately slot behind. He's still having a look or two here, but if that's what he knows is his fast line around, he's going to stick with it, although you would think he'd want to stay in the slipstream and just kind of get towed along, as you were saying, and get a little bit away from Garrett and Juha Olila.
Should note that Garrett just lost a spot. Here's the train once again for 3rd and 4th, and once again, it's similar team strategy here, Jim. Help LaVille save fuel, make sure he can go for the one less pit stop, because at this rate, LaVille might be able to win the race if this strategy plays out. There's the question, though, of can he get to 60 laps to go or so to make it work?
Well, it certainly doesn't hurt to be shepherded along here. As you say, now LaVille is no slouch of a driver. Did win the last race in the series, so he's definitely a contender and certainly a car to watch.
3 victories, by the way, for him in total on the season, currently 11 seconds back from the overall leaders, who are still running some of the fastest times on the racetrack. 0.2 quicker at times, that grouping. But winner at New Hampshire, Brands Hatch, also came away with a victory at Sebring in an exhibition race in April, as well as a victory in Chicago, Chicagoland Speedway, back in early February, among some of the testing. As well, give a shout out to June, looking very sporty so far, but one of the battles that is starting to heat up, this is Shoemake and Shipstone. This is the teammate for June, trying to hold on with Shoemake and the Aerolex machine. Remember, his teammate way up the road in second.
Shoemake's been playing it smart out there, I think. As we say, maybe letting the race come to him a little bit as we see him have a look on the inside and go for the pass.
Feeling like he's quicker once again. 16 seconds back of the race leader. Shipstone once again, the series veteran, trying to pull on the speed. No. Shoemake pushes up the track, forced to lift up that time. Shipstone nearly smacks the wall. Will still hold on to the spot, though, when the 88 machine gives the space now for Shoemake to try and make the move back after that near contact. Gives him the space, and yes, Shoemake is now off and away in P number 6. Plus 10 once again for him.
Yeah, some great respectful racing out there. Shoemake did have just had some trouble in the worst place, the very spot where you don't want to see the car moving around. Thankfully, they were able to keep it clean and keep running on.
On board with Shipstone, this is about 4 seconds ahead of the next grouping on the racetrack, by the way. Give credit to Shoemake. He's a longtime member on the iRacing service. Remember racing against him when I was first starting off in the service, Jim. Very effective as a driver, very fast as a driver. Will always be difficult to beat on the racetrack when you race against him. And also races in various different charity events for various different causes throughout the years on iRacing.
How many years ago was that, would you say?
For Randy Shoemake.
I was just referring to your driving.
He also, by the way, races in the 60 Plus Racing Adventure Series. That also has been a long time series for some of the senior veterans on iRacing to compete against each other as well. So to say the very least, Jim, a well-rounded driver and a very experienced driver on the track. By the way,
question.
Go ahead, Jim.
Oh, I was just agreeing with you. And yeah, no question about it. Great field.
Here's the train for 8th on back, McBride. Still holding on for the time being, but the 96 has been able to charge right back in once again. Remember, fell off a little bit at the start of the run, but it seems like his car for Iconic Motorsports is set up for the long run, Jim. To be quicker once the tires start to burn a little bit, and the fuel starts to burn away, because the more fuel you burn, the lighter the cars go.
All three of these drivers out there, McBride, these guys having a great day and a whole lot of fun and really putting on a great show for us. This has been a great middle of the pack battle.
At this point, though, if you're in this grouping, how do you strategize yourself to try and say, leap up an hour 4 seconds in the next grouping, because it seems like it's been difficult to break away from your grouping of respective competitors throughout the race?
Well, my plan is always just to get in somebody's mirrors. If I want to pass, I'm going to get as close as I can to your car and see if I can make you nervous, see if I can force some kind of a mistake. But with the strength, we're looking at a pass here on McBride as Saunders goes around.
A bit of mistake. You mentioned mistakes. That was a little bit there for McBride. Was all over the corner in 1 and 2. Was loose like crazy. Was able to save it, though. And there's the lost momentum. That can lose him the draft for a bit.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I think that was a little bit of commentator's curse there. I was just about to say, with the strength of this field, that doesn't always manifest itself.
See, right there on those bumps, really had to save the car with the throttle. That time it doesn't hook towards the fence, but the punishment, 2 lost spots, Jim.
Yeah, you might look for a clean pair of shorts as well on that one.
So the King of Chin sponsored machine falls back once again to the end of the top 10, still within drafting range. That grouping still is going a little bit all over still once again for 3rd and 4th. Laville, we can mention, has stayed within this draft this entire run. It's about a 20-lap difference for those tuning in between him and P3, as well as 1st and 2nd on the racetrack. If it stays green, for those tuning in, there's the chance he can cut out an extra pit stop, which would be huge. Scheduled pit stop, though, for Aiken, we've talked about how he split it up towards 50-50-50. This time pushed it about 55-ish laps to go on the fuel this time at 95 laps to go.
Shoemake and Shipstone out there in place 5 and P5 and P6. Those cars looking like they're just about glued to one another.
And it's the difficult part, again, because the importance of the draft and aero. If you are in a grouping such as this, you're essentially glued to them for much of the run, Jim.
Yeah, it certainly helps and hurts. You like that slipstream. You can save a little bit of fuel, save a little bit of tires. Yeah.
So how would you try and break away then, say if you want to try and push a little bit?
Well, certainly a gamble. Yeah, you're doing that math in your head all the time. I mean, you really attack those corners. Maybe you could get away, but then again, maybe you run off, you run your tires, so sliding the car around a little bit. I don't know. At this point in the race, we got plenty of racing left to go. I think I'm just going to bide my time if I'm one of these guys. Now we've seen a lot of movements out there, which has been great racing for us, as fans and spectators. But I think if I'm in the car right now, I'm just going to hang out a little bit.
Still hanging out a little bit is the grouping for 7th, 8th, and 9th now with the pit stop. Seen from Aiken. Should note Aiken, the first driver, 1 lap down on the racetrack. Still allows the chance for the 96 now to save a little bit as well, to make that said number. Remember, a couple drivers were able to stretch an extra lap or two in that gigantic pack we mentioned, among these drivers included in them. Drivers who did them, Shoemake, June, who are much further up the racetrack now, while others, such as these machines, had to pit earlier, and as a result, it went from essentially before, remember, a 7-8 car train to just 2 or 3.
June would love a yellow flag right now, I think. He's doing everything he can.
And I think McBride just scraped the wall in the backdrop. You see the pass, though, going on screen. The Finland-based driver able to make the pass on the bottom side of the racetrack. Run back for Saunders, though, trying to fight on back. McBride once again is in the wall, once again in the backdrop. We stay green. And his teammate Wilson passes on by as he goes down to the pit lane. He hit the wall twice on the exit of turn 4 and the exit of turn 2. Seen a bit of that chassis buckle there, Jim. That started the damage here on the chassis in the side pod.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to suffer a change in the car like that. It's going to be unpredictable out there. You wonder if McBride is just suffering a little bit of a loss of focus on the track out there.
Well, now has to duck down and get some repairs and some fresher tires as a result. You see him duck in just barely. As you've seen on the second replay and second glance, avoided that wall. Could have been much worse for him, but is getting damage repair that will lose him a ton of time on the racetrack. The battles once again, though, between Shoemake and Shipstone, and a little contested as Shipstone gets the pass. Shoemake finally lets him go after a little bit of a close contact endeavor there.
Yeah, Shipstone was right under his gearbox before he made that pass, so you wonder if there might not have been a little bump there, although Shoemake's car does look intact, as does Shipstone's, so they might have been able to keep it clean.
Yeah, these aren't the type of cars you want to bump draft with. Let's put it that way. Yeah, any type of damage to the front wing will lead to a change of said wing and lose you tons of time on the racetrack. McBride still in the pit lane is now the last driver who is still in the paddock, by the way. We've also seen Stig still getting repairs for 46 plus minutes. Under 85 laps to go in the Nucentric Solutions Indy 300 at Kentucky. Pit stops expected to open up once again, Jim, though, in just a few moments or so for some of the different calls here. For Baird, for Groscher, who are trying to stretch it to the very end of the fuel, then everybody else can push on and away for an extra 20 laps.
Baird is just as I said before, putting on a masterclass out there. He's currently passing the P7 driver. As he goes around the track, he takes the inside line, as you would imagine. Baird's gap up to 12 seconds, getting on for 13.
Yes, indeed. For now, it's been growing and growing compared to the years on the strategy. There he is on the pit lane and off and away. Once again, for those wondering, yes, you can use the access road for pit lane. Many drivers these days and many series these days for the modern times don't use it, but back in the day in this race, Jim, they had to go down that access road like you would see at the time for an Indianapolis or a Pocono.
Yeah, nice to see, honestly, since the whole point here is that we're sort of celebrating these historical races at these iconic tracks. And, nice to see them do it the way they would have done it back in the day.
It was a massive gap, by the way, we've seen for him, as already up on the jacks. Its stop time expected to be about 11 or so seconds now. Still, though, about 22 laps estimated, give or take, from outside the window. Fills it up to the top, a 12.1, the longest stop of the day for a lead competitor. Wilson passes by him yet to pit so far, but the gap between him and Aikens still massive on the track by about a corner.
Justin, Martin June here has been able to get some work done out there. He's closing up that gap to LaVille. I think he's going to be able to make this into a 3-car train, Grosser, LaVille, and June.
Absolutely possible here, and remember, he's on the same strategy just about. In fact, in a better spot to try and stretch the fuel here. And because Grosser just came down in pit, LaVille no longer has that drafting buddy to save the fuel with once again for the next 20 laps. So there's a chance June might be able to try and come away with the victory here if you can keep up with the 29 for the next 20 laps.
Justin, I'm a shallow guy. If I'm June right now, I'm thinking that, maybe LaVille will pit and I can say that I technically led the race.
Maybe. Well, this is for the overall race lead on the track right now, mind you. But here's the important... but here's the important thing. You see that interval full? It's been going down a little bit. It's near dead even on time once again, Jim. Last time by.
Yeah, I'm liking June's chances. He's seems to be closing that right up, as you say.
Now another tenth or so, just about cut off the gap. Official live timing under a full half a second. And now this is where the speed's starting to factor in for Martin June. We've talked about him a little bit, June. No more for his ability in more of the sports cars in various different series on that side of the iRacing service. His team contended for championships just a couple years ago, mind you, in the various different services. And the various different series, rather, on the iRacing Esports Network, winning series such as SEO and a couple others involving the Club Sports series at the time. He's a talented guy. It'd be interesting to see if he can try and come away with a victory in an IndyCar, as we talked about tonight.
I'm starting to think, Justin, that LaVille was really benefiting from Grosser out there, and now that Grosser has pitted from the lead, he's not quite as fast as he was.
Time seems to have, though, hit a bit of a wall once again, and this is the tricky part. At times, it seems here, Jim, unless you hit the corners right, especially once you get within the draft, especially with the car in front, and especially in recent times, you'll get the potential of aero push. Right there, June pushing up the racetrack for a perfect example. If you don't harness that draft at the right moment at the right time, Jim, you're going to end up losing time or almost get into a bubble. It's more seen for the stock cars these days. But if you're able to fight through the aerodynamic issues, you're able to close up the gap, especially down the straightaways if you can nail it on corner exit. This time, June nails it pretty well on exit. And an issue, by the way, for Tristan Halger, who was a couple laps down on the racetrack. Had some issues in the 56 machine earlier on in this race. And now he is done for the day. His car had significant damage after it clattered against the wall on the exit of turn 4. You see the damage. Watch it right here, Jim.
Yeah. Tough, once you hit it, that wall will draw you back in another time or two. And he's lucky there was nobody exiting pit lane right then.
Yeah, and that time the drive straight into the wall. Sits the cherry on top to say, I'm done. I'm towing the car. He's the second official. Check it, third official DNF. McBride has also backed out of the racetrack just prior to that incident. By the way, the battle is now within 4 tenths between June and LaVille. on the racetrack. And they still have to pit, though, in about 13 laps at the most or so. For those adding up that laps to go, which is now approaching under 70 this time by, and what you see in the stint, yes, the math does add up to try and stretch at the end if you save a little bit more in the final stint of the race.
You know, Justin, I wish we could just telepathically listen in to June's thoughts right now as he's seeing this gap come. It's coming down, but it is coming down so slowly. I know he wants, he wishes it would come down a little faster.
Absolutely at this point. Once again, 68 to go this time by for these drivers. Shipstone, his teammate, by the way, still 7 seconds back on the racetrack. June nearly up to the gearbox. Pushes tight up the racetrack. At this point, though, Jim, if you're June, do you try and undercut him by a lap and try and get the run past him once he tries to exit the pit lane to take this position for what could be for the win?
Tough, you know. It looks like he's going to go for it, though. Yep, absolutely.
And gives it right to him. Martin June leads the race. Here comes the fight back from Laville, though. Ends up backing off. He's now trying to save a little bit of fuel here. Now this puts the cards right into Laville now to try and get the undercut back. He tries to get the draft once again for the race lead. 66 to go in the Nucentric Solutions Indy 300. Laville not taking the move quite yet.
I was just about to say, Justin, that June might want to bide his time a little bit with the laps that we have left to go, but he did not, certainly did not do that. And we're going to see a real battle between these two cars.
Especially with tightness right there, but again, Laville elects not to try and send it. Peeking his nose around, no run quite yet, still elects to back off the gas in the corner. Here comes the run. Laville to the inside line. Wants the race lead back. Sends it hard. June gives it to him. Martin June trying to go for the crossover back on the corner exit. Can't get the run quite yet.
This is what we're here to see. This is some great racing.
And they know this is going to be very vital, especially if this continues to go green. June pushes up the track a little bit. They are still about 3 laps away this time by from the green light to make it on fuel.
You know, even though these drivers are battling it out there, Justin, they've got a pretty big gap back to P3 and 4, Shipstone and Shoemake. Over 7 seconds now. You would think that gap would be coming down with these guys fighting it out, but they're still managing to get out the road.
Yeah, Curly, last time by about a 10th or so quicker than Shipstone. Shoemaker's been still also staying in that drafting train you see right there. They've also been passed by Aiken on the racetrack that also lost them a little bit of time to factor in that time by without the factor of lap traffic. They've been evened up. By the way, currently at the moment, 14 cars still running. Pit stops have opened up. The 96 and the 4 with 61 laps to go. This could be tight for them. They can only make it 57, 58 laps for their fuel numbers, Jim.
Yeah, it is going to be a nail biter. It's going to come right down to it, I think.
You see them right there, but the top 2 have come down to the pit lane. They're now down on the access road. They've made it to 60 to go. This is about 59 laps for Laville, 58 for June. This could be tight for the rest of the way.
There is no worse feeling, Justin, in my opinion, than being in the position that these two cars are in right now and driving at the pit lane speed. Now, you have to do that for safety reasons, but knowing that you want to get back out there on the track and really make something happen and just following that speed limit, oh, it hurts.
And June had to roll his car a little bit forward. That might lose him some time here on this final pit stop. Off and away goes the 29 machine. He's now taken the race lead back by a decent margin and cushion. This will be about half a second down the access road. And there's a lap car in front to draft off of. That's exiting the pit road, and Caleb Weekley, who's quietly been running inside the top 10. The Aero X machine of Randy Shoemaker also just came down to the pit lane this time by sacrifice the net race lead. Josh Baird, Andrew Aiken are now P1 and P2 on the racetrack. Robert Groscher still has not been able to catch up to try and take third back, just did so. The gap between first and second is 3.8 seconds. Here's the intriguing part. These drivers, yes, have to come down and pit Jim, but with what we just seen with drivers only making it 59 laps, this might come down to a fuel mileage race.
Yeah, I was just trying to do some mathematics in my head there, and I failed utterly, Justin. I'm sorry to tell you.
Again, the number 1 lap about short for the race leaders who just came down. You've seen in LaVille in June. This is definitely going to get intriguing if this stays green the rest of the way. If this does stay green, though, Baird and Aiken would be about 30 seconds back, Jim. That's the downside of their strategy call at the first caution flag of the race, 20 laps in. By the way, on screen, you see LaVille in June now. This is the train for fourth. And now this might be where, Jim, if you're a driver, do you just ride behind LaVille and just try and save the fuel, knowing you need to make it an extra 2 laps this stint?
Well, Justin, I think what we saw before, it seemed to me June got around LaVille, but that kind of woke LaVille up. I mean, June led for what, half lap, maybe 3/4? But as soon as he did that, that really woke LaVille up, and he started driving like a man possessed and quickly took that spot back. So, yeah, if you're June, you might want to just hang on a little bit, maybe see what develops.
Yeah, remember, Groscher was the drafting partner for LaVille for the past 2 stints for about 40 laps. He doesn't have that pleasure this time. They're about 2 seconds back of him here, Jim. So now it's clean air driving for LaVille for the first time, really in the early stint of a run, since the first laps of the race.
Yeah, it's tantalizing for LaVille because he can see Grosser not too far up the track, as you said, about 2 seconds. But Grosser, just trying to see if that gap was coming down. It seems to be holding steady.
If anything, gain more time. In fact, last time by the way, the third driver you've seen in the train is lapped down. Caleb Weekley in 11th spot. Here's the onboard for the Nav racing machine. See the different lines also being taken. LaVille preferring a bit of an arc. June preferring to send it in deeper into the corner, but pushes up on corner exit. As a driver, what are some of the preferences with the different lines you may take here for entry and exit for different parts of speed?
Well, for me, most of the time, it has everything to do with where I've had incidents in the past. You know, I mean, certain tracks, you know that if you just don't want to get on the gas too early because you know that you'll tend to get loose and you'll lose that time on exit. Or, you know, some people prefer to be a little bit more ginger on the turn in so that they don't, push the car and in themselves without any front tires. So I think it's all stylistic. But for me, I'm thinking about, previous experience in that particular turn and where I've gone wrong in the past, because I've gone wrong in a lot of turns, Justin.
Yeah, going wrong in a lot of turns can lose you a lot of time, let's put it that way. At the same time, you don't want to also get too overly aggressive almost, Jim, where you're to the point where you're so flustered and frustrated, you just burn off your tires and get snapped loose.
Yeah, you never want to drive angry. Yeah, you're definitely right. But at the same time, sometimes you never drive faster than when you're in second place. You're behind an experienced driver like LaVille. Maybe he's putting on a little bit of a show for you, a little bit of a lead follow session. So it could go either way.
49 laps to go, under 50 to go in the Nucentric Solutions Indy 300 at Kentucky Motor Speedway. Nucentric Solutions is proud to sponsor the 2020 VRCE Classic Indycar Series, his 8th round of the campaign after the July break. Nucentric Solutions offers managed IT solutions to small and medium-sized businesses in the Southeast United States. For more information to see if Nucentric can provide your company IT solutions, visit them today at nucentric.com. It's been competitive so far here on RaceSpot TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Justin Prince alongside Jim Hodgson, Paul Smith in the director's seat to reset. Josh Baird is in the race lead, Aiken and Grocer in P2 and P3. Big gaps amongst the top three. However, those drivers have to come down for a pit stop within the next 15 laps at the minimum to make it to the end on fuel. Their green light was a go with 60 to go. Aiken trying to stretch it and try and put in less fuel to gain time, about 5 seconds up front. Then LaVille and June are the first cars on the minimum stop strategy. They pit with a caution 20 laps into the race and are now within 1 lap of being short to make it to the end. From what has turned into a fuel mileage race, the benefit they have though is with the extra pit stop, they'd have a 32-second cushion to the top 3 cars on track. Shipstone, Shoemake, as well as the 96, Garrett, Saunders, among that strategy as well. Currently just 7 drivers are on the lead lap in this race, and what has been a competitive one amongst many of the competitors, and what is on par for what could be in contention for another fastest lap in series history. Remember, the last time this series was held officially at this track, Jim, it set that official time with 196 laps green.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all, Justin, if we were about to see it become only 6 cars on the lead lap, because it looks to me like Baird is going to close up the gap to Shoemake and possibly get around before he's got to come down for that stop you mentioned.
Yeah, and that's the concern if you're Shipstone and Shoemake is in the next grouping behind these machines, is they didn't exactly make the fuel number. Shipstone went a lap earlier. Shoemake, though, he might have a shot of making it without running out of fuel because he made it to 60 to go. So that's going to be interesting to see how that works. There's been a change of position, though. June made the pass up the road to the inside. LaVille now wants to save fuel. Jim, this might be a smart call. Just let the driver go and let them save. As meanwhile, Aiken comes in for that scheduled stop we talked about. He'll be able to put in about 18 laps less of fuel, Jim, to make it to the end.
Yeah, you love to have that lighter car at this point in the race, does Aiken, I'm sure, just to be able to turn in some slightly faster laps. And speaking of faster laps, it looks to me like LaVille is going to potentially take his spot back from June.
Remember, though, he doesn't have that drafting partner, has actually lost time to Grocer, who's still burning off more fuel than these cars. They also, though, have lap traffic in the train. That's Weekly, who's now in 10th. Saunders in 11th spot just behind them. And there's a chance Aiken joins these cars, too, when he has to try and pass them. So this could be tight for the final 40 laps in this grouping, with drivers wanting their lead lap back and hooking onto the train here, and/or fighting for what could be the race win, while hoping to make sure they don't run out of fuel in the last lap.
Yeah, this is really shaping up for me. I'm just watching Baird now. He is in contact with Shoemake and Shipstone. You know they're not going to want to get past, as you were just alluding to, but anything can happen out there.
Absolutely, and the strategy calls are aplenty. You mentioned that grouping. Shoemake just got let by Shipstone. He's now trying to save. But Josh Baird, the current race leader, is looking for what may be a massive buffer. And this is the key, too. If he can take the extra pit stop and still be within a range of the other cars on fresher tires, this makes it much easier for him. The problem is, it's still about 8+ seconds or so to get up to the cars in front. Check that, about 3 seconds or so to this group.
Yeah, crazy the way that this has shaken out for Shipstone. Shoemake made that pass, and now Shipstone seems to be just dropping away as Shoemake is leading Baird. You would think that Baird would have been able to clear him here by now, but not just yet.
There's Aiken as well. That's in the middle of the pack, slowing them up a little bit. This is to get himself back in the lead lap, and yes, for now, get some of the position passes done. Should rather say this is 48 seconds back, is still a lap down rather, with Shipstone being the first driver. Technically, 1 lap down on the racetrack. Based on these numbers now and the times, and factoring that in here though, Jim, can these two end up still winning the race even if they stretch it to the end on fuel?
Oh, let me look into my crystal ball here. I mean, I think it's still 100% for my money. It is all to play for out there. We're seeing a lot of, a lot of on-track action. I could not be more thrilled.
35 laps to go, that time by at the stripe. Baird's still the race leader, Grocher still in second. They are still within about 12 laps or so from their scheduled stops. 3 cars are now within this train, with Weekly still hooking onto the back end. Give a shout out to Weekly. He's been one of the Nucentric Solutions sponsored drivers throughout his various different series campaigns. Has been very quietly just keeping his car clean and might be able to come away with a decent top 10 with strategy here. Jim?
You were mentioning a moment ago the massive gap that Baird has. He's now up to just about 17.25 seconds back to Grosser. He's getting a nice little tow here from Shoemake. Interesting to see that he seems to be not in any rush to clear Shoemake.
I mean, he does have to come down in pit stew and knows he's got a quick race car to get by these passes. Pace right now, 25.7s. Shoemake, he's been near even on the pace. Again, just the strategy has not worked his way throughout the race for Shoemake for much of the night. Aiken, though, is currently running 25.6s with the less fuel in the tank at the moment. Should note as well, you see this interval in the bottom? Look at that major gain that time by. Shoemake can have a little bit of cushion to push here, Jim, remember, because he was able to make it to 60 to go.
Yeah, you like to have that in your back pocket, especially if you're going to go to war out on the track, which it looks like we are going to see them do.
This is drafting right up to the current battle for P3. June is now starting to lose pace. Now Weekly's trying to make a pass on positions for lead lap cars. This holds up June a little bit. Here comes Shoemake to take away what would be for net P2 on the racetrack at the moment. Way up the track though, not able to make it stick on the top as he tries to ramp it off the banking for speed. Yes, here comes Randy Shoemake, takes it away. He's now currently 4th on the racetrack. LaVille, the next driver up in the first car on his strategy.
Meanwhile, your race leader, Baird, is just on there. He's just hanging on like a passenger on a bus.
Yeah, he is now trying to also jump some seats across that bus. Back single file for now. They're not able to make the move. Can stretch it again for a couple laps or so before he has to pit and sacrifice the race lead. The numbers to remember. Pit lane deltas for many of the drivers today, about 40 seconds. He would still be about 20 seconds back from the race leaders by the time he would exit the pit lane. But the question mark also becomes, would he be able to have enough time to close up? Shoemake to the inside for the net race lead. Once again for the strategy call. Able to make it done on LaVille. LaVille back to what is currently P2 on the fuel stretchers. And now it comes the question, if you're LaVille, are you concerned about the fuel here, Jim? Because again, he led much of his grouping with June for the first 20, 30 laps.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. He really did. Has been putting in a lot of work out there and does not have a grocer to help him make that work continue to happen. Certainly that's in the back of his mind, but yeah, lots of things to think about.
Here comes Josh Baird in for a scheduled stop and nearly lost it going down to the access road. But this will likely mean Groscher will go to the race lead. He can stretch another 3 laps on the fuel before Shoemake would then cycle to the race lead. If you had fuel mileage race in your strategy cards for the race beforehand, I don't know if you are believable at this point, because the strategy today has been incredible to try and break down one caution flag. A 2-stop versus a 3-stop to the end has become the difference for what could decide your winner today.
This is about where I was guessing we would see Baird end up, between Aiken and Shipstone, but Aiken might be able to get around. We'll see. Aiken's
still all the way back at the front stretch, though, so at least going to stay in front of him. And on the lead lap, the problem is, it's 23 seconds back overall, as we just talked about. That's going to be very hefty to try and close in 22 laps or so, this time by for the race leaders. Groscher also stretched an extra lap that time by the end of the speedway, all while Shoemake is still holding on to a small gap in front of June. June to the inside, couldn't make it stick.
That's Art just letting him go through and manage all this traffic here, isn't he?
Yes, that's Art McGowan, I should rather say, who is just letting cars on go, pardon me. But LaVille says, pardon me, I'll try and go to the inside. Now Martin June lets him on go. Shoemake runs away as a clip in the apron. LaVille goes too low on the racetrack. Able to hold on, though, for now as he goes back single file again for net P2.
Yeah, an uncharacteristic, scary moment for LaVille there as he came across the stripe.
20 laps to go. This time by, Groscher is now in the pit lane. Will sacrifice the lead to Randy Shoemake. These drivers now are your lead group. LaVille is in second, June is in third, and Shipstone is about 5 seconds back in P4 on his own. The first driver who is already pit is Josh Baird with 25.5s in pace. He's in P6, about to take P5 on the racetrack.
Well, yep, you called it. Just as you said it, he indeed did get in front of Grosser, I believe that was, and now in front of Aiken as well.
Now here comes the narrow major questions. Grosser now is a lap down, by the way, with this pit call. Josh Baird is running 4/10 a lap in some cases quicker than the lead pack right now, and has some draft 2 off a lap car that just pulled him for some extra time for one of his quickest of the race at 25.4. That gap has gone down 9 seconds since he came off the pit lane.
That is unbelievable.
At this pace, do you think he's going to catch them?
Yes, I do. Yeah. I think particularly if you're Shipstone right now, you're feeling like a goat tied to a stake, with a T-Rex in the distance.
That's about 8 seconds up the distance, by the way, up to Shipstone. We'll see if he can catch up to the bone, coming up to 17 to go. This time by the lead pack right now, though. Shoemake is still in control of this grouping of the Aerox machine. LaVille still in second. That's Garrett, that's lap traffic, but June has dropped off this pack. It's now between LaVille and Shoemaker again. And Adam Shipstone just pit this time by. He can't make it on the fuel. Remember, he was a couple laps out of that number we were talking about, so the 88 has backed out of the call, Jim.
Yep, well, no dinosaur for him today, I guess, at least not in that particular way. Now June is next to see what happens with if Baird can catch him up, although that gap now nearly 12 seconds.
Again, the fuel is a question for this top 3. And here's the downside of this call. Yes, you get the benefit of time on the track, but the driver behind them, and Baird as well as Aitken, they can push as hard as they need to, put in qualifying laps to close up to these 2 cars. So that is the downside. Still though, with about 14 laps to go coming to 13, can these 2 hold on to try and come away with the checker flag, or will Baird close in a 22-23 second gap in the span of 25 seconds? Look at that, it's already down to 12.
I gotta say, I did like his chances as he was coming out of his last stop, but I'm not sure that I was really living in the world of reality. I think it more likely that LaVille, Shoemaker, or June are going to be able to get away with this. What do you think?
It's a toss-up. Again, that gap has been unbelievable. He's been the quickest car on the racetrack, especially after he got past Aitken after the first pit stop window. Since then, ran away by about 6 seconds to Aitken, who was the second quickest car on the track, who still, mind you, is not catching up at a pace that would reach to the top 3. Honestly, in my opinion, Jim, this is still where it can go any direction here. Especially, again, with LaVille trying to save and Shoemaker now trying to get up to the next group in front of lap cars to save a little bit more for himself.
Well, as I'm watching these numbers tick down for Baird, his gap to June now getting down toward 10 seconds with 11 to go. It's not outside the bounds of possibility.
He needed to gain, though, about half a second a lap to try and win this race. Easier said than done. 10 laps to go. Nucentric Solutions Indy 300 at Kentucky.
Justin, I gotta say, I think we're for sure gonna see some fireworks right here between LaVille and Shoemaker.
See if LaVille can close up this gap. 207 miles an hour at the stripe. Shoemaker carrying 211 up into the corner. Hierarch as they've now raced the lap traffic. Saunders is up in front. Wilson and Shipstone are also battling for position up in front of them. They have gone 51 to 52 laps now for LaVille. Coming up to 51 this time by for Shoemaker, as they hope they have enough gas to make it to the end. Most drivers have made it at the most to 59 to 60 laps on the tanks, as another one backs out of the strategy. This is the Finnish driver, and Vesa Uniovilia once again coming down to pit. Lap traffic now moves out of the way of the race leaders. 7 to go. Here comes the green light for LaVille on the run to the bottom side. Went to 6th gear, trying to build up that speed. Back inside the draft. Shoemaker now counters, going up to 6th gear down the back stretch, down to 5th once again in the corner. 6 to go, this time by in Kentucky in the Bluegrass State. This is becoming a chess match, Jim. Both drivers are trying to use that 6th gear to counter to try and defend.
Yeah, thrilling. A big run for LaVille there. It looked like he was going to make a move, but it seemed like he got out of it there, Justin, just to kind of let it breathe a little bit.
High five from the flag stand, that time by. 5 to go now. LaVille again lines it up. Do you think he's just planning this move? Because I don't know if you want to make it too late or too early, Jim.
Certainly, just look at him surge there. It's, yeah, he's just got to be biding his time.
Another 4 laps to go. Here comes LaVille in the cut. Back down to 5th gear a bit more later. Shifts back up to the gears. Down the back straightaway. One more lap car, which could be a factor. 9th place is Shipstone. Other than that, clean traffic ahead. Baird has stabilized with his gap to under 10 seconds. LaVille to the bottom, a little bit loose. Shoemaker still holds on with 3 laps to go at Kentucky. Here comes the dive once again for LaVille. Once again to the O line. Again can't make it stick.
Oh, it's tantalizingly close for LaVille out there, don't you think?
This might come down to the last lap, and that's if they can make it on the fuel. Keep in mind, June's been saving a couple seconds back, 1.4 seconds behind. If anything happens with these two, with 2 laps to go. LaVille again to the bottom, again tied off the corner exit, still trying to get clean air to the nose, poking his way to the bottom side again to the bumps. Draft now being given from Shipstone to Shoemake as the white flag waving this time by. Race is official. 1 to go for the Nucentric Solutions Indy 300. LaVille back to the bottom side once again, close as he's been down the back stretch, nearly hits the back tires. One last chance to send it for the race win. LaVille on the bottom, Shoemake on the middle line. He can't get there. Will the fuel make it to the stripe? It appears so. Randy Shoemake wins it at Kentucky. LaVille in second, June in third. Baird and Aiken on the extra pit stop strategy, 4th and 5th. Round out the lead lap.
What a race. That was unbelievable.
And I think now they're just about out of gas down the back straightaway. What a way to win the Nucentric Solutions Indy 300 today. The Aerox driver started from the pit lane, Jim. Missed the start. Didn't even put in a qualifying lap. But was the quickest in practice and showed that pace at the right place in the right time for the win.
You're absolutely right. Just goes to show you anything can certainly happen out there. Kept it clean, ran a good race, and is reaping the benefits.
And as you can see, right out of fuel, not even enough fuel to do a burnout. But for Randy Shoemake, he comes home with a victory. Your biggest mover from 16th to 1st to take home today's checkered flag for round 8 of the Classic IndyCar Series season. Lucas LaVille comes home in 2nd. And for Vortex Sim Racing, while Martin June rounded out the top 3, all 3 drivers were on the 1 less pit stop strategy after the 1 caution flag in this race. The drivers who had stayed out were Baird, Aiken, and Grocer. They finished 4th, 5th, and 6th. Baird and Aiken finished 9.2 and 15.8 seconds back, respectively. Garrett also a lap down. Weekly and Shipstone, along with Jamie Wilson, also did not finish on the lead lap to round out your top 10, Jim.
Yeah, unbelievable the way that it all shook out, but thrilling the whole way through. I think we've just had a great race to watch today. I was surprised to see Baird not able to make more happen for himself there at the end of the race, but that's just the way things shake out sometimes.
Saunders rounds out the top 11. Olivia had to come down for the extra pit stop, finishing 12th. McEwen also with a rough race, 3 laps down. The rest of the drivers, 5 laps down or more. Egan, after having to struggle with qualifying the independent, finishing 14, 6 laps down. DNFs, Hauser, McBride, Diggs, Downey did not start along with Winton for today's action. With that, we'll take a step aside. Post-race coverage is coming up in just a few moments. You're watching RaceSpot TV and the iRacing Esports Network for the Nucentric Solutions Indy 300 at Kentucky. Welcome back, everyone, to the Classic IndyCar Series for post-race coverage for the Nucentric Solutions Indy 300 at Kentucky Motor Speedway. I'm Justin Prince, alongside me is Jim Hodgson, Paul Smith in the director's seat for post-race coverage after a historic night here in the Bluegrass State. It was a race seen from all across, where it was a strategy race throughout. Because of an early caution, fuel mileage was the name of the game, and the two-stop to get to the end compared to the three-stop was the victor for all the podium spots today. It was also a big victory for Randy Shoemake because, for the veteran, a longtime iRacing user on this service, it was not just his first win of the season, it was his first win in this series. Randy, how does it feel as he joins us from Victory Lane to be a winner in the Classic IndyCar Series in that fashion tonight?
Justin, I can't tell you how happy I am. It's just I've fought for it for 3 to 4 years, and Lucas has always been so encouraging. Say you can do it. I always say, Lucas, I'm running your credibility. I can't win here, and he goes, you can. And so he was the first one to congratulate me, and I just appreciate all the support that he and Robert have given us. And this league is just excellent. With one yellow today, you can tell the professionalism of the drivers and the capabilities, and it fell into my lap, and I was so fortunate to be able to take care of it.
What came to the decision making to try that strategy? Because just 3 cars tried to stay out and banking for another yellow to try and then even up the strategy, and Baird, Aiken, and Grotzer, who finished in 4th, 5th, and 6th. What came down to the decision to try that pit stop strategy and in turn then be able to stretch it just enough to make it on the fuel better in some cases than the drivers behind?
The first yellow flag made the determination. Like you said, 3 stayed out. I got myself into trouble over penalties from previous race. I had to start from the pits. I was fortunate that I was able to remain unlapped, being at the back of the field. I had I had the green light to go ahead and take a pit stop and do what I could from there. And it all started with making that first pit stop and then timing everything else out correctly.
A dream day for you today, to say the very least, with this victory today. Overall, who would you like to thank for this victory to finally make it to victory lane for AeroX in this series in your long career?
Justin, thank you. I've got to give out a big thanks to Andrew Aiken this week. We worked so hard, and we feel like without Matt Cook, we're at a loss, and you just can't live up to the standards of AeroX. But this week, it seemed to come together. We were confident in what we had, and we thought we had the best prepared setup. I want to thank my wife. She is so supportive. I want to thank mom and dad and stepmom, my most enthusiastic supporter. I'm sorry. My granddaughter, just in the league, Robert and Lucas do such a fantastic job, and there's people that help behind the scenes that we don't even know about as far as judging, what's fair, what's not, the penalty system, and this league is run so well. But Tony Lamberti is the gentleman that gives me the most enthusiasm and supports me so much, and I just want to pray to God that you heal him, take care of him, and thank you for all that you do for me.
Congratulations on your first career series victory today in what was fantastic fashion. You're also the biggest mover. Congrats.
Thank you, Justin. Have a great day.
You too. That's Randy Shoemake taking home his first career series victory tonight here in Kentucky. Now, an interesting note, the driver behind Lucas LaVille was chasing him throughout those final laps. If he took the checkered, he would have became the winningest driver in series history. Jim is with him down towards the pit lane.
Lucas, great race out there. You've got to feel good about the results, even if it didn't quite end up in a win for you this week. How do you feel?
Pretty good. I wasn't expecting this with the pace the guys in front had at the beginning. Like Josh was on fire, and Aitken's quick as always. But the race kind of came to me with the fuel strategy. I could have saved one more lap in the middle stint, and I would have been able to be flat the last stint, and probably gonna take the checkered, but still very good result P2. Not that Josh Chid is no longer able to race. I have my own teammate as my biggest rival, so today is a very good result for the championship, and that's the target for me. So that's great day overall. Very happy for Randy for his first win. That's so great. I'm so happy, and the league is growing competitively, and that's great. And yeah, I hope it was entertaining for you guys, because it was for us, saving fuel all the time.
Absolutely. We're just about biting our fingers off up here. So if you don't mind, just what's going through your mind? It's, the laps are coming down. It's 5 to go, 4 to go, 3 to go. What's happening in the cockpit as you're having that go on?
Well, basically the whole stint at the end for our group, like Randy, Martin, and I, it was timing the lap when we can basically go flat. So it's a lot of thinking, and as well placing the car, because you want to be leading when you go, but you don't want to give too big of a run to the guys that are behind you. So it's a lot of thinking as well as saving fuel. So you're really like working the right foot to save gas, as well as working the mind, working with the crew chief if you have one. So it's very intense. Even if it doesn't like look so hard on the camera, it's very intense, and probably as intense as fighting side by side with someone for 60 laps.
It was intense for sure. A great race out there. Anybody you want to send a shout out to?
Yeah, big shout out to Vortex team, especially Robert today. He gave me so much draft, so I owe him a lot, and a beer as well, I guess, for the second place finish. Shout out to Tristan with a lot of help for the setup, and all the guys at Vortex. Shout out to you guys for the broadcast. I can't wait to watch it. Well, as always, it's so great. We're so happy to work with you, and also big thanks to series sponsor VRCE for helping us this year.
You bet. Well, great work out there, Lucas. Thank you so much for putting on a great show for us. Chapeau, and looking forward to seeing more racing in the future.
See ya.
Once again, that's Lucas Laville coming home in second. The driver who came out in third was his first career start, Martin June, normally known for his road course racing in the sports cars. Today went on the oval and nearly won the race, had the pace to do it for much of the way. Martin, how does it feel to finish on the podium in your first official start for points this season?
Of course, this is great. I never thought this would be I would be able to do this. I actually started iRacing a couple of years ago to race oval, but I got talked into going road. So now I thought, well, let's go back to my roots again.
What were some of the difficulties of trying to adjust back from going from road course racing, where you're known for racing, say, some of the GT3s and the various different series for NAP racing on that side, and then going back to the oval in a difficult car, mind you, in the Legacy circa 2011 chassis for the Indy cars?
Yeah, well, it's probably, I think, the setup work. There's gone a lot of work into making a setup together with my teammate Adam Shipstone, which I really thank for it, because together we really made some great progress, and well, that made us made me being able to get to P3.
Next race on the calendar is at a road course in Montreal. Will we see you first off there? And second, if we do, what are your expectations once we go to that racetrack? It's 72 laps on the docket.
I really love the racetrack. It's great. It's kind of a city racetrack, so I really love it. But I will be really happy to just finish in one piece, and then I'll just see wherever I got finished.
Who do you want to thank for being a part of your strong debut tonight?
Of course, Adam. Like I said, Adam Shipstone, he really helped me a lot with the setup work. And NAP Racing, of course, my team. Graphics, my sponsor. Well, that's it, I think.
Congratulations on the podium in your first official start.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's Martin June coming home with the P3 today. In today's action, Jim is standing by with the driver who elected to try and stay out under the first caution flag and didn't have an air caution the rest of the race. That's Joshua Baird, who is the first driver on that call.
Yes, indeed. Unbelievable pace out there for Joshua Baird. Josh, anything that you would do differently?
To be honest, I don't feel like I really would going back in that situation, because I think most of those guys just had only even 1 or 2 laps, and they had to really stick to a fuel-saving strategy, and I thought I would just go out there and try and get the most out of the car, because I knew I wasn't losing much pace by doing a full stint. So I was really trying to play the long game and conserve how many pit stops I made. But obviously in the end it came down to 1 or 2 laps made that difference. So it's unfortunate, but happens. Sometimes cautions fall your way and sometimes they don't.
Yeah. Well, you said it. Absolutely the case. Put on a great race out there. We were just watching the interval come down and thinking that you might be able to make something happen at the end. But what do you think attributes to the pace that you were able to show out there versus the rest of the field?
Well, 2 things I think really happened. One, I sat down and had a good conversation with a couple drivers to try and better understand the car. And I took some extra time during the summer break to really sit down and just tweak the settings, tweak the setup to try and see what causes pace and what different oval tracks allow me to do. So that really helped. I learned a ton from the summer break, and I was able to go out there and essentially show my practice from the summer break paying off.
Yeah, no question. So optimistic for the rest of the season?
Definitely. I still got some work to do on the road courses. I'm going to try and finish as high as I can, try and stay consistent in that regard. But the ovals, I have a really strong feeling that this will be par for the course for me. I'm going to really try and push myself to be the fastest car out there every time. And it was really nice to be able to be out there today up with the front and being able to see pace out of the car.
Yeah, it was thrilling from my seat as well. Anybody you'd like to thank for today?
Yeah, I'd like to thank all my family that joined in on watching today, and my wife, and I'd like to thank God for the opportunity to be able to race. And I'd like to thank my team. They really helped out in getting some stuff, getting more setup tips, and I'd like to thank the hosts, Robert and Lucas, and you guys for putting on a great performance every week, and also Dynamic Solutions and Indycar Ministry.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for the time. We really appreciate it. Great race out there.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Joshua Baird coming home in P4 tonight. And what was an intriguing race. One of the drivers who was up and down throughout the grid, and one of the drivers who was trying to stretch that field but couldn't, was Andrew Sanders. He joins us here in the broadcast booth. Andrew, first things first, how are you feeling just outside the top 10, P11 behind Jamie Wilson?
Disappointed, to be frank, and I'm blaming no one but myself for this.
Let's talk through the difficulty with the strategy. It was mentioned by Josh that it came down to 1 or 2 laps for especially the top 3. How difficult was it to try and save the fuel to get to that specific number in your case?
Well, it was difficult because I realized that strategy portion way too late. The thing is, to make that strategy work, you should spread the amount of fuel you save to each stint and not load it onto one stint, so you can manage it better, take advantage of the tow a lot better. That's the main mistake I made this race today. Because of that, I just went full beans in second stint, and then the third stint in the middle of it, I just realized, hold on, I could make it without doing a splash and dash, but then I realized when I was called into the pits, thanks to DRE, I realized how many laps I still had to do in order to make it with no further stops. Meaning it would have been a better result if I realized it from the start and not realize it so late.
Next race is at Circuit Joe Villeneuve. How do you plan to change things up there from going now to an oval to a road course to try and not make similar mistakes?
Well, the strategy-wise, it's a completely different ball game. There, we don't have to deal with cautions. We will most likely don't even have to fuel safe. I don't have exact numbers, but I doubt we have to fuel safe. It will be more of an overcut race. There's push to the end. It will just depend on how long we are going to separate our stints. The main difference there for me will be to make my new equipment work. For the first time today, I used new Fanatec pedals, and because of some complications, I'm only going to start using my new Fanatec wheelbase in that race, which was going to be my 50th.
See how things go then with the setup adjustments. Then by the time you get to Montreal, who do you want to thank for your run today?
Well, first of all, my team, because they did great setup work, a great base. I was very surprised to get P4 in qualifying. I was not expecting that. Of course, place seed for the last time, Logitech for the G29, and of course there's Fanatec for the pedals, and also our regular sponsors to support the Nucentric, Colorworks, Dynamic Solutions, all the bunch.
Congratulations on the run today.
Thanks.
That's Andrew Adair Saunders coming home NP number 11 today, 2 laps down. First things first, Jim, your final thoughts on today's action, which seemed almost a mix of everything.
Yeah, honestly, I'm just unbelievably touched by the emotion that Randy Shoemake showed there. He, you can't ask for, I don't know. It's just great to see somebody who cares that much about the race and about the league come away with it. As much as he says it fell into his lap and the race came to him, I thought that he showed just a great racecraft out there. So a great win, an unbelievable race all the way through. I think you and I had a great afternoon. I really had a lot of fun.
Had some fun here too, absolutely on my end. Want to try and bring up the schedule here because a couple things to know here with this calendar. We go road course racing next, as mentioned, in Montreal on August 22nd, but as well, as mentioned by LaVille, with Chin not making today's race and apparently not having that possibility in the future, the points lead is now up to 53 points for LaVille. If he has a clean run at that race there, Jim, there's a chance he can try and run away and clinch the title for the final 4 races of the campaign.
Yeah, and I would not be at all surprised to see him do that. I mean, he's did not end up winning today, but certainly has pace, knows this series inside and out, and would not doubt for a second to see him at least at the sharp part of the field, if not on the top step.
And it could be a tricky race too, mind you, because that's a lot of laps too in the calendar, Jim. 72 laps.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, as we've said so many times today, anything can happen, but I would expect to see LaVille certainly factoring highly.
Absolutely. Before we say our goodbyes, I'd like to thank our sponsors today. Of course, the race sponsor today, Nucentric Solutions, who are proud to sponsor round number 8 of the Classic Indycar Series. They offer managed IT services to small and medium-sized businesses in the Southeast United States. For more information to see Nucentric, if they can provide your company IT solutions, visit them at nucentric.com. We'd also like to thank the title sponsor for this series, Virtual Race Car Engineer, a software package that includes the setup developer tool and the Virtual Race Car Engineer, which assists real and virtual race cars. The setup developer tool walks the users through a step-by-step process of creating and customizing your very own personalized baseline race setup. It does so by asking simple questions such as the car type, the track type, the behavior of the car, etc. on the track. The Virtual Race Car Engineer further then fine-tunes the baseline setup you have to get the most out of your car, offering whole lap and corner-specific advice. VRCE will get the very best out of your setup. Both the setup developer tool and the Virtual Race Car Engineer can be found in links below for the YouTube version of this broadcast this evening. You can also take a look at the affiliate program for that action. With that, it's time to say goodbye. A thrilling race today for the Nucentric Solutions Indy 300 at Kentucky. For my broadcast partner Jim Hodgson, for director Paul Smith, for Hugo Wees for the camera pack, I'm Justin Prince saying so long, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. We'll see you in Montreal.